I will have your baby. Please, just save me." Her desperate cries split the silence of the prairie. A young woman was tied tight against a massive boulder. The ropes bit into her arms, blood seeping from her wrist. Her face was streaked with dirt and sweat, one cheek swollen, red, lips trembling as she fought to speak. Her torn white dress clung to her body, stained with dust and blood. Her wide eyes burned with fear, locked on the man standing a few steps away. He was Thomas Hale, 60 years old, owner of Red Mesa Ranch, tall, weathered, his frame carried the strength of a lifetime. A red scarf at his neck caught the sunlight. His gray eyes studied the scene with a cold stillness. Beside him, a brown horse pawed at the dry ground, sensing the tension in the air. Clara Rose was only 22. Her bare feet pressed into the brittle grass. Her body was covered in bruises, her hip and belly dark with pain. Every breath lifted the thin fabric of her ruined dress, exposing the marks of violence. She shook as she tried to hold his gaze, begging for a chance at life. "Please save me. I will pay any price." Her voice cracked, carried on the hot wind. Tears rolled down her dirt-stained cheeks, mixing with blood. Thomas clenched his weathered hands. The question echoed inside his mind. Should he step forward and cut the ropes or turn away and keep his ranch safe from trouble? The frontier had taught him that every choice carried a cost in blood. A harsh wind swept across the open field, lifting dust into the sky. The sound of crows drifted from the distance, dark and heavy like an omen. Claire twisted against the ropes, but only made them cut deeper. A low groan slipped from her lips, weak and broken. He remembered the whispers in town. A girl taken, tied out in the open as a warning. The name Jed Crow rose in his memory. A cruel man long suspected in disappearance, never punished. Could Clara be his latest victim? Thomas let his eyes linger on the bruises across her stomach, his chest tightened. He had seen pain before, but the raw plea in Clara's eyes struck deeper than any wound. They were not the eyes of a liar. They were the eyes of someone who had nothing left but hope. "Please, do you hear me? I beg you." Her voice broke again. "I have nothing. I only want to live. Please save me." Thomas took a step closer. The crunch of his boots on dry grass echoed in the heat. His hand rested on the knife at his belt. One cut and she would be free. But that choice would light a fire he might not be able to put out. From far off, the thunder of hooves rolled across the plain. Thomas narrowed his eyes against the glare of the sun. Jed's men could be riding back to finish their work. If so, violence would follow. Clara trembled, her voice nearly gone. "If you walk away, they will come back, and this time I will die." Her sobs cut through the dry air. "Please save me. I will give everything, even my life, if it means freedom." Thomas drew in a long breath. The years had hardened him, but not enough to silence what he felt now. He had watched cruelty rule this land for too long, and now a young life begged him to act. If he turned away, who would step in? The sun blazed overhead, the world holding its breath. Thomas tightened his grip on the knife, resolve forming in his eyes. Every decision had its consequence. Every action carved a man's fate. And so the question rose, hanging heavy in the air. Would a 60-year-old rancher, burdened by honor and the weight of his land, risk everything to save a stranger bound to a stone? Thomas took one steady step forward, his hand slid the knife free from his belt. The sunlight flashed along the steel for a brief second. Clara froze, her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she was not sure if he meant to save her or end it all. Right there. The ropes were thick, rough with dust and sweat. Thomas pressed the blade against them. The sound of the fibers snapping filled the air. One by one, the strands gave way until the whole knot began to sag. Clara gasped as her arms slipped loose, the blood rushing back into her hands. "You are safe now, girl," Thomas muttered, voice low and steady. Clara looked at him with wide eyes, tears cutting paths down her cheeks. Safe. It was a word she had almost forgotten. But the ground trembled with a warning. Hooves. Not just one horse, but several, pounding closer with every heartbeat. Thomas turned his head, his jaw tightening. They are coming back. Clara tried to stand, but her legs shook so bad she nearly fell against him. Thomas caught her, steadying her with a firm grip. Easy now, he said. You will ride with me. We will face them together. Her eyes searched his. Why are you helping me? You do not even know me. Thomas gave a small smile. The kind a man wears when he has carried too many regret. Because no one else would, he answered. And I am tired of watching evil win. The first riders appeared on the rise. Dust rose behind them as they kicked their horses hard. Thomas could already make out the face of Jedcrow. Twisted with anger. He had the look of a man robbed of his prize and hungry for blood. Thomas lifted Clara onto his horse, settling her in the saddle before climbing up behind her. She leaned back against him, still trembling, but clinging to the hope that had just been given. The horse snorted and stamped, ready to run. The riders shouted curses across the field. One of them raised a rifle, waving it high as if to scare them. Clara gasped, clutching Thomas by the arm. He held her steady, his voice calm in her ear. Do not look at them. Look at me. We will get through this. The gap closed fast, the sound of hooves beating like thunder. Thomas leaned low, whispering to the horse, Now, boy. With a sharp kick, the horse lunged forward, carrying them across the golden field. Wind tore at Claire's hair as she held tight. The world blurred with speed, the rope still dangling from her arms. Behind them, Jed's men gave chase, their shouts echoing across the open land. The chase had begun, and Clara knew one thing for certain. Her life was now tied to this older rancher who had chosen to risk everything. But what would happen when Jed finally caught up with them? The horse thundered across the dry field, each stride carrying Thomas and Clara farther from the gang. Dust burned their eyes, wind cut their cheeks, but Thomas kept his hand firm on the reins. Behind them, the riders shouted, their voices raw with rage. Hold on tight, Thomas called. Clara clung to him, her heart pounding so loud she thought it might break. Every beat of the hooves was a race against death. A gunshot cracked the air. The sound was sharp, rolling across the plain. A bullet hissed past Thomas's shoulder and kicked dirt into Clara's face. She cried out, but Thomas steadied her with his arm. They want to scare us, he said. But fear only matters if you let it. Another shot rang out, this one closer. Thomas pulled the horse hard toward a dry gully. The animal leapt down into the shallow cut, hooves striking stone. The riders followed but struggled to keep pace. The narrow trail slowed them, their curses echoing against the rock walls. Thomas guided the horse around a bend where the gully widened. He swung down, pulling Clara with him. Stay low, he told her. He drew his revolver, eyes sharp as steel. When the first rider rounded the bend, Thomas fired till the man tumbled from the saddle, his horse bolting away. The others pulled back for a moment. Jed shouted something ugly, promising revenge, but Thomas noticed something more useful. The rope still hanging from Clara's arms bore a brand mark burned into the fibers. The letter C, Jed Crow's personal stamp. It was proof. If they survived, this would bring Jed down before the law. Clara stared at the mark, her eyes wide. They left their name on me, she whispered. Her voice shook with both fear and hope. Thomas gave a slow nod. Then justice will follow. We just need to get you there alive. The riders regrouped, preparing for another charge. Thomas tightened his grip on the revolver. The fight was far from over, and both of them knew it. Now folks, if you have been drawn into this chase and want to see how Clara and Thomas stand against Jed Crow, make sure you follow along and subscribe. That way, you will not miss what happens when the law and the gun finally meet. Because the real question is this. Will Thomas and Clara make it to town with that rope in hand? Or will Jed silence them before justice can be done? The town came into view just as the sun began to dip. Wooden buildings lined the single dusty street, their windows glowing in the late light. Thomas rode in with Clara still clinging to him, the rope with the mark of the letter C wrapped tight in his hand. Folks on the street stopped what they were doing. They stared at the bruised young woman on his horse, at the blood on her dress, at the weary but steady face of the old rancher. Whispers spread fast. Everyone knew trouble when they saw it. Thomas pulled the horse to a stop in front of the sheriff's office. Sheriff Maeve Callahan stepped out, her badge catching the fading sun. She was Sharpied, a woman who had kept the peace in rough country for years. She took one look at Clara and her expression hardened. What happened here, Hale? Who did this to her? Jed Crow, Thomas answered without hesitation. He held out the rope, the brand mark clear on the fibers. This was his work and she will tell you the rest. Clara slid down from the horse with Thomas steadying her. Her voice shook, but her words carried weight. He left me there to suffer. He said no one would dare stop him. The sheriff studied the rope, then looked back at Thomas. This is proof enough to hold him, but he will not come quiet. You know that. As if on cue, the sound of more hooves filled the street. Jed Crow and his riders stormed into town, dust rising behind them. Jed swung down, his face twisted in fury. He spat in the dirt and glared at Thomas. You took what was mine. Jed growled. His hand hovered near the gun at his hip. You think the law will save you? The townsfolk pulled back toward doorways, some peeking through windows, afraid of what might come next. Sheriff Callahan placed her hand on her revolver, but did not draw. She was waiting, watching, ready for the first wrong move. Clara reached for Thomas's arm. Her bruised hand trembled. Do not let him take me again, she whispered. Thomas stepped forward, the rope still in his grip. His voice was steady, carrying across the street. You are done, Jed. This time the law will speak louder than your gun. But Jed's hand twitched lower, fingers brushing the iron at his side. And in that moment, the whole town held its breath. The question was simple but deadly. Who would be faster when steel cleared the leather? The street was silent except for the sound of boots shifting on dry boards. Jed's hand twitched closer to his gun. Thomas did not move fast, but his eyes never left the outlaw. Sheriff Callahan's fingers tightened near her own weapon. Waiting for the break of lightning, Claire stood frozen, her heart pounding. But she found her voice. Everyone sees the truth now. She called out, her words carrying further than she thought they could. You branded me with your mark. You left me to die. And this town will not let you do it again. A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd. People who had once feared Jed now saw him exposed for the first time. He looked smaller. Jed snarled, but anger made him reckless. His hand jerked for his pistol. Before the iron cleared leather, Thomas had already drawn. The old rancher's shot cracked through the evening air. Jed staggered, the gun clattering to the ground. He fell hard into the dirt, wounded and done for the day. The riders who came with him shifted uneasily. Sheriff Callahan leveled her revolver at them. You boys want to join him or you want to leave this town standing? One by one, they dropped their weapons. The fight was over. Clara's knees gave out and she dropped into the dust. Thomas caught her before she hit the ground, steady and strong. You are safe now. He told her, his voice calm, like a promise. And for the first time, she believed him. Sheriff Callahan ordered him taken into custody on the spot. Days later, the trial was held. The rope with the letter C was laid before the court. Witnesses spoke. The truth could not be denied. Jed's name was broken forever. Injustice was done in the open light. But the greater story was not only about law and judgment. It was about the courage of a man who could have walked away but did not. It was about a young woman who refused to let her spirit be crushed. And it was about a community that finally chose to stand together. Claire stayed at Red Mesa Ranch. She found strength in work, in caring for horses, in building something new with her own hands. Thomas watched her grow steadier each day, and in her eyes he found something he thought was lost to him. Hope, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that stays and carries you forward. And maybe that is the lesson we take, too. When life ties us down, when the ropes cut deep, do we give up or do we fight to stand again? When others cry for help, do we turn away or do we step forward even when the cost is high? If this story has touched you, give it a like right now, so more folks can hear it. And if you want to follow the next Wild West story of struggle and redemption, make sure you subscribe to the channel today, because the question remains, what story will we tell next? And will you be there to see how it ends?